Chapter 9. Black Snake Colony Member. Nancy was too far away from the car to see its driver or license plate. Thoughtfully, she went to bed, but lay awake for some time, feeling completely baffled over the many mysterious happenings. By morning, she felt eager for action. Ever since her arrival at Redgate Farm, Nancy had wanted to visit the cavern on the hillside. The strange moonlight ceremony and the unidentified car which had hesitated in front of the house only intensified her interest in the place. She broached the subject of a visit there to Mrs. Byrd, but Joanne's grandmother frowned at the idea. "I'll worry if you go," she said. "Those folks are probably harmless, but we don't know much about them. I wish now I had never rented the land. The neighbors are saying I was foolish to do it in the first place." "And so you were," Mrs. Salisbury, who had overheard the conversation, chimed in. "You'll ruin the value of your farm. Why, people around are saying dreadful things about the members of that cult. Even Reuben is afraid to go near the place." "I'm not," Nancy announced. "I think it would be fun to investigate." Mrs. Salisbury snorted. "Fun? Girls these days have strange ideas of fun. First thing you know, Mrs. Byrd, she'll be wanting to join the colony." "Nonsense!" Mrs. Byrd smiled. In order to avoid further dissension, Nancy dropped the subject of the cave. But that afternoon she set out alone on a hike. Making her way to the woods which skirted the river, Nancy struck a well-worn path and decided to continue along it. She had walked only a short way when the sound of a faint cry came to her. Nancy halted in the path and listened intently. The cry was not repeated. "Maybe I imagined it," she said to herself. Nevertheless, Nancy quickened her pace, looking about her as she walked. As she rounded a bend a few minutes later, she was startled to see a woman hunched over on the ground, writhing in pain. "What's the matter?" Nancy cried out, hurrying over to her. Then the girl's eyes widened. This was the woman she had seen running across a field the night of the storm. "I tripped on a root in the path," the woman murmured, rocking back and forth in pain. "My ankle, it's broken." Nancy dropped to one knee and quickly examined the injured ankle. It was swelling rapidly, but all the bones seemed to be in place. "See if you can stand," she advised. With Nancy's help, the woman managed to get to her feet, but winced as she tried to take her first step. "It isn't broken," Nancy said gently, "but you have a bad sprain." "Oh, what'll I do now?" the woman moaned. "Do you live far from here?" Nancy asked. The stranger looked at her rather queerly and did not answer at once. Nancy thought she had not understood, so repeated the question. "About a quarter of a mile up the river," was the mumbled response. "I'll get there all right." "You're scarcely able to walk a step," Nancy said with a troubled frown. "Please let me run back to the farm and bring help." "No, no," the woman protested, clutching Nancy fearfully by the arm. "I don't want to be a bother to anyone." "Nonsense! You shouldn't be walking at all. It won't take me a minute to get someone to help you." The woman shook her head stubbornly. "My foot feels better now. I can walk by myself." She started off, but nearly collapsed by the time she had taken 3 steps. "If you won't let me go for help, then at least let me take you home." Again the woman protested, but Nancy took hold of her arm and placed it over her own shoulder. With Nancy's support, the woman made slow and painful progress up the path. "This is killing you," Nancy said, dismayed that the woman was so foolishly stubborn. "I can get our hired man to carry you." "No!" the woman objected vehemently. Her unwillingness to accept help puzzled Nancy. As they made their way slowly along, she became aware that her companion's distress was not entirely due to pain, but partially to Nancy's own presence. This mystified Nancy, but she could not turn back as long as she knew the woman really needed her. "I don't remember seeing any houses along the river," Nancy said after a time. "You're not a member of the nature cult, are you?" A half-cynical expression crossed the woman's face, then one of sadness. "Yes," she returned quietly. "I'm one of the members." Nancy took time to scrutinize her companion more carefully than before. She wore a blue gingham dress which was plain and durable, and certainly did not appear to be a costume. The woman did not speak or act as Nancy imagined a member of the cult would. She seemed like any other person. "It must be healthful to live an outdoor life," Nancy remarked, feeling that some comment was necessary. "I've often looked over at your tents and thought I should like to visit the colony sometime." The woman stopped abruptly in the path and faced Nancy, an odd look on her face. "You must never come near." "Why not?" "It wouldn't be safe." "Not safe?" Nancy echoed in astonishment. "I don't understand." I mean the members of the cult don't want folks prying around," the woman said hastily. "I see. The rites are secret?" "That's it," the woman said in obvious relief. "But why couldn't I visit the colony sometime when ceremonies aren't being held?" Nancy persisted. "You mustn't come near the hillside, ever," the stranger warned. The two continued up the path. To Nancy, it was apparent that her questions had disturbed the woman, for several times she caught her looking distressed and worried. As they approached the hillside colony, and before they were within sight of the tents, the woman stopped short. "Thank you for your help," she said quietly. "I can make it alone from here." Nancy hesitated. The woman's firm tone told her it would do no good to protest. She was not going to let Nancy come any nearer the camp. "At least let me find something that you can use as a cane," Nancy said. She searched along the path and found a branch that was strong enough. The woman accepted it gratefully. Her face softened and she stood for an instant, looking intently at Nancy. "You're a good girl to help a stranger like me. I wish—" The woman turned away abruptly. "Remember," she advised sternly over her shoulder, "don't ever come near the camp." Still perplexed, Nancy watched the woman hobble away. It took her a long time to reach the top of the hill, but at last she disappeared from sight. "I can't understand why the poor thing acted the way she did," Nancy said to herself as she sat down on a log to think. "What harm could it have done if I'd gone with her to the colony? The cult must have some very important secrets." The more Nancy considered the matter, the more baffled she became. The woman didn't look as though being a member of the Black Snake Colony made her very happy, Nancy thought. If they're so afraid that someone will discover their secrets, they must be doing more than just flitting at night in white robes. Maybe that's only to keep people from guessing what really goes on there. As Nancy reached this startling conclusion, she jumped up and walked briskly toward Redgate Farm. "There's one thing certain," she said to herself with a chuckle. "Now that the woman has forbidden me to go near the camp, I can't resist finding out what's happening there." Nancy was just approaching the farmhouse when she heard the phone ringing. She hurried inside and answered it. "Yes, this is Nancy Drew," she replied to a strange man's question. "One moment." While Nancy waited, she wondered who the caller might be. Was someone going to threaten her to desist in her detective work? "Oh," she said as the next speaker announced himself as Chief McGinnis. A sense of relief came over the girl. "I have some news, Nancy," the officer said. "It's discouraging." Nothing on the code or the missing men. Then he chuckled. "We need another clue from you." Nancy realized her old friend was teasing. "Glad to help," she said gaily. "What's the assignment?" "To find out where the Hale Syndicate moved to after it left room 305. "Then that was their headquarters," Nancy cried excitedly. "Temporarily. But they left no forwarding address," the police chief said. "If we could decipher the rest of the code, we might be able to trace them," Nancy said. "Anyhow, I'll be on the lookout for any clues. At least it shouldn't be too hard to find Yvonne Wong." Chief McGinnis agreed and assured Nancy he would let her know if there were any new developments. Then he asked, "And what are you doing? Any mysteries up your way?" "There might be." She told him the little she had been able to glean about the mysterious nature cult. She described the unusual moonlight ceremony the girls had witnessed and the appearance of the unidentified car. The police chief whistled in amazement. "Sounds as though you do have another mystery up your sleeve. Have you come across any possible clues to what the cult is worshipping, Nancy?" The girl detective hesitated a moment before telling Chief McGinnis about her curious conversation with the woman she had assisted in the woods. She decided to mention it and added that although the woman had readily admitted to being a member of the cult, she had given Nancy no reason for her firm warning to stay away from the meeting place. "Black Snake Colony, eh?" the police chief said reflectively. "Yes," Nancy replied. "Have you ever heard of it?" "No, but let me look in a report we have here on all cults. I'll call you right back." Nancy waited eagerly for the phone to ring. When it did, she snatched up the receiver. "The Black Snake Colony is not listed," Chief McGinnis told her. "You mean it's a phony?" Nancy asked excitedly. End of chapter 9.